Chapter 7 was all about Pokken's ground game, and I'll say it a million times, I love Pokken's ground game. The thing is, some characters have superior control of the ground compared to others. Many times this is because they can keep opponents out with projectiles or really good pokes. To get around these, other characters often resort to jumping and using their aerial options to do damage instead. Projectiles, jumping, and anti-airs are all related, so I'm going to talk about them all in this chapter. Projectiles are, well, anything your character throws out at the opponent. There are nuances to that, and some attacks that look like projectiles don't get erased by projectile invincible moves, but that's the general rule. In field phase, most projectiles don't track very well, so the best way to avoid them is with sidestepping. In duel phase, most projectiles don't go very high, so you can stop them with jumps. Different projectiles have different priority levels, and I've linked a list of them made by Shadowcat. Projectiles keep opponents at a distance and deal a lot of chip damage. Because there are so many varying animations, there's not a universal way to stop them all. Some can be punished with the CADC, and others leave opponents in hit stop so long the character using the projectile can punish the CADC instead. Some of them only hit at certain heights or can be jumped or slid under on reaction. Others are negative on block from close up or completely unsafe. As a general rule, however, walking and blocking is the strongest counter strategy against projectiles. Check out my video on dealing with projectiles that I've linked. As for utilizing these yourself, they're great for stopping opponents who like to dash and lunge at you constantly, as they'll give you free damage and even a confirm depending on the move. Jumping is the knee-jerk reaction to stopping grounded pokes and projectiles. Jumping is very strong in Pokken because it avoids lows on frame 1 and it avoids mid-lows on frame 5. Most of the best pokes in the game are lows and mid-lows. And jumping avoids a ton of projectiles. This allows you to punish their recovery animation as you're coming down. Many characters like Gengar and Decidueye have obnoxious jumping movement options and attack animations that make it almost impossible to keep them out of the air. Even using the universal 8Y anti-air, you'll often still get beaten out. The main downside to jumping is that it is committal, meaning you cannot block in the air and you obviously can't micro walk to avoid danger while in the air. Let's get into how to take advantage of that fact to stop players who are jumping at us. Anti-airs are attacks used to stop opponents who have jumped. I have a video on how to properly space yourself to anti-air effectively, and I've linked that. And I also talk a lot about spacing in my Pokken Basics Plus course. Some moves are designed to stop jumps, and others are just used as improvised anti-airs. 8Ys universally have upper body invincibility, or some invincibility against mid-highs and highs. Most of them have the invincibility starting on frame 5, while others can start on frame 1 like Chandelure and Gengar. And there are other moves like Suicune's Aura Beam that aren't 8Ys but have upper body invincibility frame 1 also. Check the frame data to see if you have moves with upper body invincibility that you'd like to use. Otherwise, armored moves can also act as anti-airs like Shadow Mewtwo's Side Strike, but those are character specific for how effective they can be. The faster the move, the more likely it is to be active fast enough to actually punish a jump in. If you hit opponents while they are still in the air, you usually can get a juggle afterwards. Some characters are just bad at controlling the air. Blaziken's 8Y has a really low priority hitbox and will clash and lose with jump X's and other aerial attacks a lot. So instead it has to dedicate to release X, which still has a pretty narrow hitbox on top of it. When fighting a character like that, you'll find it very rewarding to pressure them with lots of jumps. Even if Blaziken tries to use a 15 frame move like EX Sky Uppercut, it has no upper body invincibility, so it's not protected from your jumping attacks hitbox at all. Remember that you can still use jumps, which are usually mid-highs, and other highs against most anti-air attacks, but it has to be done meaty. Specifically, it has to be done before the opponent's anti-air attack reaches its upper body invincible frames. Projectiles keep opponents out. Jumping is used to counteract projectiles and grounded attacks, while anti-airs are meant to control jumps. Master all three of these and footsies to assert dominance over the ground and the air. Now that we've finished basic spacing concepts, next chapter will be about basic offense. If you found this guide helpful, I have every chapter of Pokken Basics, even the ones unreleased in my YouTube and Pokken Arena, already on my website in a Pokken Basics course. I also go in depth on the nuances of spacing in my advanced course, Pokken Basics Plus.